So I think I figured out what this podcast is. But before I get into that, let me just give you a quick disclaimer. I'm sure you've all figured it out already, but this podcast is exclusively on YouTube. And YouTube has this, obvious rule that you can't use copyrighted music in your podcast. But I figured out a workaround. I'm not doing this for monetary gain. I'm doing this just to be, obnoxious and self-indulgent. But legally, I can't put any copyrighted music into the podcast itself, which is why you hear the fade out and the fade in of the music I want to play, because I actually have to link the song from the actual source and not put it in my podcast. So my apologies if that's annoying, and my deepest apology if you have to deal with advertisements. I am not getting anything from that, obviously. I am, of course, a YouTube premium subscriber, totally worth the $10 a month. That's $2.50 a week, not to listen to ads! Because ads are freaking annoying. I understand why they're there, but they're annoying. Anyway, so thank you for dealing with that. Moving along. In my first podcast, I said I didn't know what this is, and I was kind of making it up as I go. I am still making this up as I go. I have no idea what this episode is going to be. I won't know until it's finished. And by the time you're listening to it, I already know what it is. No, I think this podcast is going to be very self-indulgent, which we all knew already. Podcasts are only that. But I think I figured something out. I think I figured out that when you get older, you go senile. And listen, I got lots of stories. I do. I got funny stories and sad stories and other kinds of stories. I don't know what other categories there are, but I have stuff that I'd like to tell. And when I get old and senile and my grandkids are, I guess you need kids before you can have grandkids. Or whatever. Someone in the future generation is going to wonder who the heck I was, just like I'm wondering who some of my relatives and ancestors were who I don't know. And this is an opportunity for them to really, really understand who I was and how nutty, things were even back in the ancient times of the 2000s. Or even worse, in the 80s and the 90s, which, at some point, that is going to be super old. Like when I tell people in the future that I was born in the quote-unquote 1900s, yeah, that's going to be like super old at some point. Like, I remember thinking people born in the 90s were already way too late, and now it's 2021. And there are people who just missed a lot of great things because they hadn't been born yet. But you look back at previous generations who also said the same thing about us. So, that's just the way life is. And people who are born this year, like my brand new nephew, congratulations to my youngest brother and his wonderful wife who just had their third child. It's a boy. Woo! That's right, man. Listen, that's something else, okay? All right, the only way in my own twisted world to keep your family name is you have to have boys. When you have offspring, they have to be boys, okay? Yeah, there are the women out there who could, keep the name of themselves, but traditionally that's not the way it works, right? Now, my dad is the only boy out of 4 children that my grandparents had, right? So he had the last name, and he had to pass it on. Pressure was on, and he had to pass it down. Well, what do my parents do? They have 3 boys. Nailed it. They nailed it. They did. They had 3 boys, and Now, my youngest brother is the only one who's had any kids so far. I shouldn't say he had 2 boys. It's really a joint effort. But no, they just had their second boy, and I'm thrilled, and it's going to be, and it's the realization that I'm no longer like the young one. And what I mean by that is, when you're a kid, you have your parents and you have your grandparents. You're the youngest, you're the youngest generation. And it's just within the last 5-10 years that I've realized that I'm now in the middle generation. right? All of my biological grandparents have passed. You know, my parents, of course, still rocking and rolling because they're awesome. And it's like, you know, I'm second to last now. So it's all about the new generation, you know, and it's about these young kids and trying to mold them into the world. And anyway, I'm really looking forward to seeing how it goes. Swinging back to the whole point of this was to give them a really true inside look at who Ross was.
I didn't kill my wife. I don't care.
Jesus, I'm talking like I'm dead already.